All right, well, fantastic. Thank you, and welcome everyone. We may still get a few people joining us for our inaugural mining interactive webinar. But right from the outset, really delighted that those that have joined us have made that time available in what I know is a very busy schedule to spend a little bit of time with myself and my broader Osmasa team, both in the room with me and online, to sort of explore some of our challenges and opportunities from a workforce planning point of view within the mining industry. I'll introduce myself quickly and then we'll move on. My name is Jan Norberger. I have the great privilege of being the General Manager for Workforce Strategy and Industry Engagement here at Osmasa. And in the room, sort of around me, the other camera that's on, to your left, I'm not even going to try. Anyway, we've got Will, give a quick wave. Will is my manager for industry stewardship. And then the back of the head that you're looking at with a green polo top there is Michael Rose. I'm sure many of you know Michael. He's our manager for industry engagement. And then almost trying to get out of camera shot, but not quite able to do so, is Annalise, who is our amazing manager for marketing and communications. Also, just a very quick shout out to the other Osmasa staff that are joining us online. But before we go too much further, I'd just love to just spend a moment to acknowledge that no doubt many of us are coming into this virtual meeting, as it may be, but from many different First Nations lands around Australia. I'm normally based in beautiful Perth in Western Australia, the promised land, I know. But I am actually coming to you today from Melbourne to be with the rest of the team to help make this webinar just a bit smoother. But on behalf of the entire Osmasa team, just love to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we live and work. And we acknowledge traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their ongoing connections to land, sea and community. We certainly honour and pay our respect to elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, including any that may be joining us today in this meeting. And I mentioned to the automotive group earlier this morning that if I was coming to you from Perth, I would be coming to you from the land of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, but here in Melbourne, it's the Wurundjeri people. So delighted to pass on our respects to them today. Okay, so let me just advance our slides here a little bit. Sorry, I'll minimize that. Okay, so what we'll do just quickly, just so we know what this session looks like, and whilst it is part of the housekeeping slide that's coming up next, I may just very quickly point out we are recording this session. So as soon as this session is complete, you'll get a copy of that made available to you, so you can re-watch it and get some points out of that. To protect your own privacy as well, you'll see that everyone's cameras and microphones have actually been turned off, and the chat, which I think we will be using quite profusely, will show you as anonymous, so you can really feel free to share your views without kind of worry who that's going to be attributed to. But as far as our agenda for this session today, in a moment, I'll just spend a few minutes just giving a bit of a recap in regard to the journey thus far from a workforce planning perspective here at Osmasa, specifically how that relates to the initial workforce plan that we published late last year. And obviously this session today forms part of the journey that we're on now towards the publication of our 2024 workforce plan. Thereafter, we've divided the webinar or the interactive webinar into 4 sessions just to really help us guide the conversations. The first session is going to be exploring some of our challenges and opportunities around workforce attraction and retention. Then we'll move on and talk a little bit about culture and industry perceptions within mining, have a look at diversifying the workforce, and then finish on emerging skill needs. Now, as I said to the automotive group, who we had a similar session with this morning, each one of these topics you could probably spend a 1 or 2 day period in a, in a seminar and probably still not get to the full bottom of it. So we're very realistic that in the 20 or 15-minute time slots that we've allocated for each of these topics, we're not going to be able to solve all of the world's ills. However, it is important for us to be able to work closely with our industry colleagues to at least get the appropriate themes or topics or agendas on our radar. And we're certainly very happy to then progress those conversations outside of this webinar. So if we do nothing else other than identify some of the key themes that we should be doing a deeper dive into, then this session has already succeeded. So as far as housekeeping goes, and some of these things I've probably touched on just in the lead up to this slide, but it is a 90-minute session. We want to be really respectful of everyone's times. We know that everyone's very busy, so we're going to do everything in our power to stay on time and have you finished on time, if not even marginally earlier, see how we go. I've already mentioned that the session is being recorded, so if you'll see that your camera is turned off and your microphones are muted, you're not being individually targeted. That's sort of across the board, just to help with the flow. That said, we will be using a variety of mechanisms at our disposal within Microsoft Teams environment here, including the chat functionality. We've got a couple of polls that we can use, moderated Q&A, and just to really help you get your point of view across. It is a slightly smaller group in the mining industry webinar, so we do have the capacity and capability to allow you to turn your microphone on. You'd have to sort of just reach out to us through the chat. If you really feel that there was a point that you really felt needed to be made by talking to the group as opposed to typing it, we can do that. If we do get into that scenario, just be mindful that you'd have to be really good at your elevator pitch and try and be succinct and within 90 seconds or something to kind of make your point, because otherwise we'll just sort of burn through the time. But it is a capacity that we can look at. I don't believe we're going to have any issue because our industry colleagues that we work with are amazing people. But the whole idea is that we'd love to hear a variety of views, and we want to get a broad range of perspectives on some of these issues. And that may mean that for some of those views, we may have differing opinions, and that's fine. But just even just with us using the chat, I would just ask that we just all stay respectful of each other's views and opinions. If you do need to leave, totally understand that happens, and you will still get the recording, and you're still obviously more than welcome to engage with us afterwards and follow particular themes up, which really comes to those last 2 points. As I said, for ourselves, we're looking forward to sharing this time with you as an opportunity to ensure that the track that we are already on in relation to our workforce planning and some of the research projects are actually lining up with what industry expects us to. And in doing so, that this is a great opportunity to hear from yourselves where you think our focus should be, and the key themes that you feel should be explored and worked on more. And whilst we may not solve them, at least this is an opportunity for you to put those things on our radar, and we will then follow up with you subsequently as well. And finally, this one now is the second interactive webinar, but this morning was the first. So it is a new technology for us in the sense of just expanding our way that we want to engage with our valued stakeholders. By doing it online, it does allow a much broader audience, including in regional and remote areas, to be able to join. And that's really important to us. But it is a learning journey. So I would suggest probably by the end of the week, we intend to send out a survey to everyone that was part of these interactive webinars, just to hear your thoughts in regard to what worked well, what you thought could be done differently, and I suppose maybe even get some suggestions from you in regard to how you would like to see these things run in the future. Wonderful. Well, without any further ado then, we'll move on to, I suppose, just the 10-minute little recap in regard to our initial workforce plan. I'm certainly hoping that many of you have had the opportunity to avail yourself to a copy, and if not, we have included some QR codes there for you that you could even scan using your phone right now if you'd like to. The one on the bottom left will get you your own digital copy Not a signed copy. You'll have to wait till next time you see me, and then I will do a book signing for you. But get yourself a PDF copy. And we are still welcoming feedback in regard to the initial workforce plan. And that QR code at the bottom right would take you to a form that can really allow you to, down to specific sections, give us feedback in relation to maybe areas you wish that we would have gone into more detail, or areas that you felt we may not have, done as well as we could. So we're always open to constructive criticism and certainly suggestions in regard to how we can improve the document, because it is an important document, and the next slide will explain a little bit in regard to why it is so, and what we look to get out of it and what government looks to get out of it. But the initial workforce plan, for all the effort that went into it, and that includes the feedback and input from stakeholders, has a somewhat of a short shelf life, because the 2024 workforce plan is well and truly underway. And in fact, all of you should have hopefully received the data dashboards, and I think maybe Annalise may, or might be asking too much. I think in the last webinar we did put a link in there. So if you have not had a chance to get hold of the data dashboards as they relate to the mining industry, keep an eye on the chat. I dare say Annalise will probably put a link in there for you in a moment. And what I'll do in a moment is explain to you how the particular subdivisions that those dashboards relate to, where they come from, and how they fit together to form an overarching picture of the mining industry. But certainly, the one thing to point out is that the data dashboards that you would have received are actually the most current. So the data in those dashboards really, if you like, supersedes any data that you may find in the initial workforce plan. But certainly a lot of the narrative and the themes and some of the the priorities that we would have identified in the initial workforce plan still hold true. The 2024 workforce plan, we're hoping will be available publicly, and for industry we're hoping in June, and we're working obviously with our own team and within the Department of Employment and Workforce Relations to make that a realistic time frame. Alrighty, so I'll just move forward. So look, workforce planning is a strategic centerpiece of the Jobs and Skills Council model, and it really serves to inform our priorities, the work that we want to undertake in support of our industry. But the workforce plans also serve as a really important policy advising piece to government, and hopefully from the feedback we've received also helps industry in their own planning. And if we do our job correctly, the workforce plan will actually give us a really accurate demographical insight into our industry down to a more granular level, or certainly the 2024 plan will be more granular, and I'll explain that in a moment, as well as identifying current and future challenges, opportunities, trends. All of these are designed to assist us to suggest strategies and perhaps policy settings so that we can actually address the skills shortages and the skills needs of our industry. And I mean, ultimately, any good workforce plan should help us and industry attract the right people with the right skills at the right time and in the right locations. And so this interactive webinar is a great opportunity for you to have an input into some of these key areas that you feel we should be touching on and exploring and including in our 2024 workforce plan. So when we built the foundations of our workforce planning model last year, and what we refer to as the workforce plan backbone, we rely very heavily, and for good reason, on the great data that is available through the Australian Bureau of Statistics. And there's two quite specific frameworks that we use to help define and model our data on. The first one is ANZIC, or the Australian and New Zealand Standard Industry Classification. And we use that to actually define, if you like, the boundaries of our industry in regard to where our responsibility as a Jobs and Skills Council starts and finishes, and to help delineate, if you like, our playing field of influence that we have, and also to help define our industries so that when we provide the demographical data to you, you have an understanding in regard to where that comes from. So ANZIC is really important for us in regard to defining our industry. Then once we've done that, we use ANZSCO, or the Australian and New Zealand Standard Classification of Occupations, to dive a little bit deeper within our industries to look at what some of the key roles are, where they sit as far as skills shortages go, predicted future demand, training and enrolment. So ANZSCO really provides that more granular level of detail for us, down to individual occupations. And whilst no data set is perfect, and we know that, you know, having spoken to many stakeholders, ANZSCO as well, you know, some of the classifications within there may be a little bit outdated, although obviously they have been going through a renewal process. Ultimately, we're still really, really lucky in Australia to have access to great data that we can use to help inform our decisions. So our backbone is derived from that combination of ANZIC and ANZSCO. Now, what that looks like graphically, if you all lean in and lean a bit closer to your screen, I've got to put my reading glasses on, gives you a graphical representation of how ANZIC helps us define our industries. And up the top there is mining, and underneath that is automotive. Now, mining is a little bit easier because within ANZIC, it actually has its own dedicated division, Division B. I will note, however, that as within ANZIC Division B is also oil and gas, and the oil and gas sector is actually looked after by another Jobs and Skills Council and not ourselves. So even at that point, we can't really model our data on the mining division at that highest level. We need to go a little bit lower. And that's what those orange highlighted little rectangles show you, is at the level that we gather our ANZIC data to help begin to divide our industries into a little bit more granular detail, which means that for the mining industry, when we look at the mining industry, we look at it as by 4 subdivisions. And so if you have a look at the data dashboards that we've made available, you'll see that there are actually 4 dashboards that make up the mining industry, and they correlate to this backbone that you see here. So from a mining perspective, when we look at the mining industry, it means we look at coal mining, we look at metal ore mining, we look at non-metallic, basically the quarrying industry. It's a bit of a long title there, and then exploration and other mining services. The aggregate of those 4 is really then what gives us our overarching view of the mining industry as far as our jurisdiction, if I can use that term politely, would be involved. And that would then look like this. So this, I don't know if this little screenshot here was distributed as part of the data dashboards, but in essence, it is the aggregate of the 4 individual data dashboards. And so what we're looking at is a worker base within the mining industry of 279,000 workers, and you can see that what that looks like historically there on the line graph, and the light green there is looking at the female participation, which pleasingly has grown, but we will get a chance to do a bit of a deeper dive there. Right from the outset, the one thing that I find a little bit worrying about this high-level data is if you have a look at the attraction or the composition rates, if you like, of younger Australians, so Gen Z at 8.13% versus the age demographics that would be representative of people that are potentially going to be reaching retirement age soon, so 60 plus at 8.34. Now, if you had a workforce that was predicted to remain stagnant or plateau, you could probably look at that and go, okay, well, the input of younger people, and noting that people can join and do join the industry as, you know, beyond age 25, so it's not, you know, a hard and fast formula. But nonetheless, it is an indication that I think as an industry, we need to continue to work hard, and we'll look into that in one of the sessions in a moment to make sure we're attracting young people to our industry. Otherwise, we are going to run into problems. And unlike the automotive industry, which when we looked at that this morning, had its workforce distribution almost neatly in line with Australia's population distribution, we know that that is not the case with mining, with the majority of the workforce being in Western Australia, shout out to my WA friends, and then Queensland and New South Wales not far behind. And that's not to say that there is not important mining presences in areas like Northern Territory, South Australia, Tasmania. Absolutely, they are still critical to us, and we absolutely enjoy engaging with them as well. And so if any of our friends from Isaac and Tia on the line, I know there was an RSVP, so I will do a shout out to them, and also our friends in South Australia and Tasmania and the rest. So I've been told I'm taking too long. I'm talking too long. So this is just to give you a very high-level overview in relation to why we do workforce planning, the kind of data that we capture from a demographical point of view. But equally, the important thing with the workforce plan is then to take the data, and noting that this dashboard you're looking at here is extremely high level. So the dashboards you would have been sent out are going to go into a lot more detail. But it's really important that we then take that data and then interpret it, and that we add a very meaningful narrative to it, and really unpack the story behind the data. And sometimes it's also asking the question, well, what is the data not telling us? What is going on within the industry that may not yet be reflected in data, but it will, in either good or bad way, depending on what we do about it. And that's really what we want to spend most of our time on within this webinar, and which, you know, is a great little segue into our first interactive session, and that is to really have a conversation with yourselves around workforce attraction and retention. I've got a slide here. This would not be a surprise to many of you, I would suggest, and the data you're seeing there on your screen now is actually the most up to date. So that supersedes the similar table that you will find in the initial workforce plan. The initial workforce plan, due to the timing of it, was still relying on 2022 data, and this is now the skills priority list based on 2023 data. But it shows that out of the top 20 ANSCO occupations within the mining industry, 12 out of those 20 are recognised by government as suffering from a skill shortage, which for the industry colleagues on this webinar, you're probably feeling that every day. And you can see that really short of that one job role there in the ACT, every state and every territory for those roles is feeling pain. And so that's not unknown to us. We know that's what the data tells us. And for a lot of them, including, for example, mining engineers, you would almost argue that they've been endemic. That this is not suddenly a new thing for them to be on the skill shortage list. They've tended to have been on the list for a long time. But beyond that, the idea with these sessions is that I'm actually going to stop talking, I promise, and allow people to type away on in the chat, and then we'll engage with you by virtue of what you put in the chat. But just to get you thinking around the sort of questions we'd love to ask you and get your feedback from within this session is, you know, how can we attract more workers into the industry? What's the solution? Or how can we support people to stay in the industry? Equally, love to hear any examples of particular strategies that you are either employing yourself or you've heard others use. You know, what is working? What are some of the initiatives that industry is doing to overcome some of these shortages? You know, even your views in regard to what you think government or SMARSA, for that matter, could do. Is there something that you go, gosh, if only such and such would do such and such, we wouldn't have a problem? Love to hear that. If you could change or introduce a policy, what would it be? It's really an open session. It worked really well with the automotive one using the chat, and we're happy to engage with you. So I'm going to pause and actually I'll drink a bit of water, and I welcome you to start typing in the chat. You will come up as anonymous, and we will certainly engage with you. Great. Someone has kicked us off with saying more public funding for private RTOs. Now, yeah, so private RTOs, I know that's obviously state specific. If you're happy to remember, you're anonymous, you might want to let us know just what state you're referring to, although I'm assuming your comment probably applies to all the states, but the funding mechanisms for private RTOs are different by different states. Easier to ramp up skills for Cert 2, 3, and 4 than for undergrad degrees. Okay, yeah, that's right. And I mean, look, that's the whole idea of the VET system. The VET system should be able to be more responsive and scalable and be able to work more closely with industry if we make it work as we want it to. So thank you for that feedback. The person who wrote about the public funding for RTOs, feel free to add a bit more detail to that if you like. I've come from a private RTO background, and in both instances this was in WA, but we were on the user choice funding panel, so we did get funding. And if purely from a WA perspective, because by own admission, that's my only experience from that point of view, when you were on that, you got the same funding as a TAFE. Now, understanding you might be referring that the actual pay rates per hour, nominal hour, the view might be that that's too low. We spent a great deal of time developing graduate programs for engineers, still a very competitive market. Okay, got you, yeah. And but are you generally finding, whoever made that comment, that those sort of graduate programs are working? Are they helping to retain and engage? One of the things I'd love to even ask that person, especially around our engineers, is there more that we can do, or are we doing, to engage with people a lot earlier, including while they're at school, to make sure they're even considering a career within, say, to become a mining engineer? And I think a lot of industry have, for some time, had really, really good graduate programs, but to a certain degree, it relied on people to make that decision themselves that, hey, I'm going to study mining engineering. And when they did, we know that they get welcomed by the industry and generally supported well. Okay, grad engineers are sticking, which is awesome. That's great. Which I'd like to think is then also gets to the point that when people actually see the variety of the roles that, the work that they get to do and how exciting the mining industry is and how important it is, that they then stick around, especially when they also see that they can build an amazing career around that. So I'm just going to try and catch up with the chat here, which is great. So here we go. Allow more transferability of qualifications between similar industries, e.g. underground versus open cut. Great feedback. Thank you. And yeah, we'll definitely, and that is obviously in our backyard. Both of those qualification streams are in our backyard. So great to take that feedback on board. Young people are hesitant to enter the coal industry in apprenticeships or traineeships as they are concerned there's no government, federal or state, support for the long-term future of the industry. Yeah, okay. And valid point, it's interesting that I guess what might happen is that young people hear about, coal power stations shutting down, but we know that, I think according to the initial workforce plan, like 94% of the coal we mine is actually exported, and it is still a very, very important economic driver for the Australian economy. But that may well not be, getting through to the community, and then they're worried about whether they've got a long-term career opportunity there. A particular shortage of mining engineers. Only one uni in South Australia has course for mining engineers and has limited enrolments. Need public PR campaign to attract undergrads to the industry. Thank you for that comment as well. And you'll see in the next session when we talk about culture and the perception of the industry, we've got some of the statistics there that some of you may have already seen previously from some of the research that OSMESA, we were OSMESA at the time, but OSMESA undertook with Year 13 around the perception of the mining industry, and I think that's quite pertinent. Let me just quickly, I agree, promotion of STEM in schools is vital. And I know that's been talked about for a while. Is that working? Would be my question. Do we feel that enough is being done to promote STEM? Consideration of upskilling skilled labour for renewables in the future, which I know is a focus of the government, the clean energy workforce. too much emphasis on pushing young people towards engineering degrees with little focus on trades. Yeah, right. Interesting point. And on that as well, and I know, and looked, and to that person's point, if you have a look at the table on the slide there, we're hurting across the board. It's the solution is not just in higher education, although we need that as well. The reality is we need more people everywhere, including in the trades. So yeah, I take that on board. One question I would even have, wonder whether we could do an on-the-spot poll, but Annalise could probably maybe freak out. But yeah, with mining engineers, it would be interesting to see what the view of today's participants are, whether there is a path, a room there for something like a diploma of mining engineering or an advanced diploma of mining engineering. Now, we know that they're under the MEM package, which we don't have carriage over, but under the MEM package, there's a variety of engineering diplomas, but not one for mining. You know, it would be interesting to see whether, and I think Annalise is creating a poll for us, so hang 5, you'll get an opportunity to answer that. But, you know, whether that also then gives an opportunity for people who are already within the mining industry or may have come up through the industry via a trade, to have that stepping stone towards high education and lead to a mining engineering role in that way. While that's coming up, oh no, there we go, look at that. So is there room for a diploma of mining or an advanced diploma in mining? So here's an opportunity for you using the poll. Feel free to vote, yes, no, or maybe. We're even giving you a fence sitting option, so that's good. No, you've
last comment, clear understanding of that pathway.
Okay, so I'll let a few more people respond. That's great, getting to come in. A few responses received already. We'll give it a few more seconds. There we go, 20 responses so far. 22. Would hate to guilt you into it, but there's 46 of us in the webinar. So, okay. A few more seconds. So at the moment, it's sitting at 50% say yes, and 42% say no, so maybe. So it's only 8% is a hard no. So that's interesting. Thank you for that. So that's a bit of a maybe yes. And that's certainly something that, yeah, I know my good colleague, Helen Tinney, who's the General Manager for Vet Policy and Training Products, you know, we are as a team looking at whether we can help people, especially with pathways through that and then even beyond that, and whether we can then get people who are already engaged in the industry to take up some of those other roles that are in need. Awesome. Well, thank you for that. And so coming back to the comments, demand for our resources can be volatile. Quarry heavy materials are used within Australia for infrastructure and has steadily been increasing over the last 10 years with modest price rises over this time. Thank you. Demographic support, mentoring and wraparound transitional support for identified demographics where additional support is required to increase workforce retention, such as First Nations, low socioeconomic, people with additional needs to transition from school to work or unemployment to work. Great feedback. Thank you, whoever wrote that comment. And certainly in the session we had this morning, we actually spent a bit of time discussing the critical importance of mentoring, so especially within those trade streams and apprenticeships, although to the earlier point, even grad programs, you know, which from that comment, obviously they are sticking, which is great, and potentially you're dealing with a lower volume, but certainly with apprenticeships, and you can see in the middle there, you know, at the moment, we generally are at risk of losing 1 of every 2 apprentices that we attract. So after all of that effort has been spent on attracting people to our industry, bringing them on board, obviously it is a shame to be losing on average almost 1 in 2. And so part of that discussion was whether or not, because of the skills shortages and everyone's trying to do more with less, whether in fact some of our trainees and apprentices are actually getting the level of coaching and mentoring on the work site or on the job as they possibly could. So I don't know if you have a view on that. would love to hear that. But that was certainly a discussion that we had this morning, whether our support and mentoring is as good as it could be. Need better PR. Yep, thank you. As we know, mining is integral to the country's transition. Totally agree. We know it. We get it. It's what do we do to make sure that message gets out there? Again, the mining industry and its perceptions. Okay, in regard to apprentices, which is my primary focus, business policies for recruitment do not reflect the needs of their businesses. While not wanting to sound sexist, it's an observation that a policy of 65% female recruitment is failing. It actually transmits to 100% female recruitment rate, as males do not feel they have a chance, therefore they do not apply. Also, for whatever reason, the attrition rate for females in mining is far higher than males. Okay, really interesting point. And I mean, that is something for my data team to maybe be able to dive a little bit deeper in. We do have access to enrolment and completion data within the VET system, and we'll have a look to see whether we can drill that data down by gender. I'm not sure if we can, but that's a great one for my team to take away and look into. Clearer understanding of VET pathways, both from VET into work, but also VET into higher education. Thank you. And that's exactly what we are keen to explore as well, to see how the VET system can help. And we know with the University Accord, the final report into the University Accord is really foreseeing and envisioning a much closer relationship between VET and higher education. There is a diploma in surface mining and underground, uses competency pathway quite well to get supervisors to senior exec. Awesome, thank you. I'm a maybe. I would like to see a diploma or advanced diploma as long as it clearly transferred into undergraduate training and there was some guaranteed aligned recognition with particular universities. Great feedback, absolutely. And again, coming back to the vision of the University Accord, is that that integration needs to be there. Otherwise, if you're leading people down a study pathway, which then is not recognised, it's not going to help. Encouragement for miners to train their workers properly is the key. As soon as a miner trains up a worker, they are poached by others. Yeah, and look, and to a degree, we understand that that happens. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to avoid. I mean, having said that, I think we've all heard of that saying, you know, I'm trying to remember how the saying goes, you know, what's worse if you train up the person and they leave, or you don't train them and they stay, you know. But I understand, nonetheless, you know, training and good quality training is and always has been an investment, and one can only but hope that the culture of your company and all the other aspects that come with it will hopefully work to retain people. And I'm mindful we need to move on, but I'm just going to read this last comment. Agree with the above comments. Most big mining companies do not properly train their apprentices in the full range of skills required to be a qualified tradesperson. This leaves the apprentices to seek better opportunities outside the industry at the completion of their apprenticeships. Most then do not return as they identify better job opportunities and satisfaction elsewhere. Well, thank you for that. And that's actually really interesting, because I know that with our automotive colleagues, we've had a lot of conversations around the fact that they feel that sometimes apprentices will finish for the sake of actually finishing and getting a trade under their belt. And a lot of the feedback has been that sometimes within a year or two, they end up leaving the automotive industry. Now, the primary driver in that instance for that conversation generally stemmed to remuneration. Whereas, you know, this comment is sort of alluding that in this instance is actually to broaden their exposure to a broader set of skills. So that's definitely something that we will take on board and look into as well. So thank you very much for that. If there's anything else that someone wants to share, and again, we're not going to be that strict. If something comes up in a subsequent session that may have fitted better in here, that's fine. Just if it comes to mind, put it in. But thank you so much for that. Remembering that this is just an opportunity for us to get these things on our radar, and we'll be able to follow up with you and vice versa, yourselves with us as well. So that does take us to our next session, session 2, which looks at culture and industry perception. Now, we know that you know, mining has had its sort of period in the spotlight, certainly in the last couple of years, you know, in regard to workplace culture and, you know, sexual harassment and bullying. I think that wouldn't be a surprise or new to anyone within this webinar, we've been on a journey to improve and address that, and really hand in glove with that comes then the perception of our industry, critical as it is, which we know it is, especially within the younger generations, and Gen Z gets spoken about a lot. So to help even prompt some of our conversations is some of the data are promised earlier. On the right there is a very, very short snapshot. The actual report itself is about 30 pages, I think, and some really detailed insights. But the research that we undertook in partnership with Year 13, which actually surveyed, I think it was 1,200 Gen Z, so it was a really decent sample size around Australia, came back with some sobering statistics. Now, the one thing I will point out, in fairness, is that the data you're looking at there is the national aggregated data, and certainly the perception of the industry tended to be a lot more positive in states such as WA or Queensland, where people had a much bigger exposure to the industry through either their family or friends or, and colleagues. But nonetheless, the industry is bigger than just one or two states. And especially if we look at some of our workforce needs, we need to be able to attract good talent from any state. And then, so we still have a little bit of work to do. And you'll see on the left just some bullet points that came from a Chamber of Commerce, CCIWA, article just as recently as August last year in relation to research by Curtin University that showed that, look, we have improved, and you'll see that bullet point down the bottom that it has improved since 2018, and we are on a journey, but there's obviously still a little bit to do there. So for this session, very similar. We've actually got 2 polls in this session, so we can pop them up in a minute. We might even start with them actually, just to get the conversation going. So I'll get Annalise to put the first poll up. Yeah. So the first one here is this: how well do you think the mining industry has fared in improving its workplace culture? And you've got a bit of a range of options. So, we know as an industry we're working on improving. How do you think we're going? Have we made significant improvement, moderate improvement, slight improvement? Do you feel really we haven't really improved at all? We've just sort of kicked the can down the road, or don't know. So feel free to get your views in there, and we can then use that as a bit of a discussion point. And while you're voting, I'm having a look. We've had 15 responses, so we'll give you a bit more time. We'll use the results of this poll to guide our discussions, but really what we're going to try and decide on is, what strategies have worked well? What has worked? What's been done out there that we think has actually made a difference, be it on culture or the perception within the community? What more needs to be done, either to improve the culture or what more needs to be done to improve our perception? And I've got another little prompt that I'll leave towards the end. So 22 responses. Few more moments. And then, so the way it's looking at the moment, so 48% have said moderate improvement. In fact, I think, well, you can actually see the response, I think, up on the screen there, so which is good. So 8% feel that we've made significant inroads. The bulk, 47%, feel that we've made moderate improvement, which is good. At least we're heading in the right direction. 13% feel that we've made a slight improvement. No one feels that we haven't done anything, which is good because that's great. And 29%, there's a lot of fence sitters, but that's all right, we still love you. And 29% don't know, but that's okay. So that's talking specifically about the workplace culture and, psychosocial safety. Have I gotten that right? Anyway, you know what I mean. Mental well-being, dealing with, sexual harassment, bullying, and just in general getting a more balanced workforce. Not forgetting that is the next session as well. But happy to open up the comments and just see if anyone wants to say anything. Okay, we're placing mental health champions on site. That's amazing. Excellent. And how long has that been in place for? And are you noticing a difference? Is that making an impact? How's that been received? Love to hear from a follow-up comment for that one, but that's great. And is anyone else doing something similar? Have we seen changes on the sites in regard to how we tackle this? So mental health champions, fantastic. And you're getting lots of upticks, so you know it's a good comment. So well done. So I'll pause to see if anyone is typing and wants to add anything. We do have a second poll that we can bring up momentarily. That'll then start looking at our perception, our community perception. Everyone's giving their keyboard a rest. Oh, still too early to tell. Okay, fair enough. But so it's a fairly new initiative, but hey, well done. That sounds amazing. And love to, hear from you in relation to how that works down the track. Leadership programs cover these topics and they are becoming more self-aware. Okay, great. Fantastic. And I think, a lot of the research has also shown that it's so important that it's leadership driven. It has to be, top down. And so that's really important. And I think hopefully as well that we're normalizing the fact that we can talk about our mental well-being and mental health. We're breaking down the stigmas. And hopefully, surely that can only be but a good thing. So, all right. Well, I'll tell you what, just to keep everyone going before your keyboards get rusty. Oh, hang on. Leadership enterprise skills need to be nurtured at all levels for better resilience and outcomes. Yeah, okay, that's right. And look, that's come up in conversations as well, the resilience training right from apprentices right through. So that's really good. Thank you for that. And then BHP and Rio are just doing enough to meet the obligations without taking the ultimate step to being about a massive culture shift in the workplace. Okay, but my question then would be, what would that look like? What to get a massive culture shift? What does that look like? And the only thing I will say is, whenever you try to change the dial on culture, it's difficult to do overnight. And the bigger the organisation, the bigger the task of changing culture. And that's not me trying to take an opinion or whatnot. I'm not here to do that, but it's certainly always a bit of a journey to change culture. Are you thinking about introducing competency specifically relating to culture or psychosocial safety, etc.? Well, look, possibly. It's I know that one of the things that we want to do is, as we start adding new qualifications or making changes in, hand in glove with industry, of course, is that we take an innovative approach to everything we do. So when we do open up a training package or qualification or start developing something new, for us, the status quo is not, where we want to be. We want to be bringing forward innovative solutions to industry to help all of us to achieve the outcomes that we want to achieve. So in that sense, quite possibly so. But I wouldn't want to, I want to make sure I'm saying the right thing with Helen's team, but certainly our focus is on being innovative and actually having a positive impact on our industry. The current leadership courses are more generic and aligned to business skills. There should be more tailored programs with case studies and examples to support the workers in the mining sector. Great comment. Thank you very much. And we had our mining strategic workforce advisory panel meeting last week, and we spent a fair bit of time talking about leadership courses and the need for them to be a little bit more tailored and less plain vanilla. So great to see some of the comments around the leadership, and leadership is important. I guess all of us have a personal responsibility. Is there something more that the broader workforce can do to have a positive impact on culture, or are they already doing it, or what more could they do? And is there anything at any level that you think could be done to help support the broader workforce to make the change that we want to see? And then any leadership training should have a major focus on inclusivity, diversity, and the recognition of problem areas. Okay, great. And not that I'm giving any one RTO or anyone a bit of a plug, but for my colleagues in Western Australia, I know that the Edith Cowan University through the Mars Centre has just recently launched a graduate certificate, I think, in leadership in this space. So that could be something at least worth having a look at. And so yep, I'm being told Michael's cracking the whip. So we've got one more poll. We've got 5 minutes left for this session. And so we need to have a balance between physical leadership and cultural leadership. Agreed. That's a great comment. So maybe in the time we've got left, Annalise, if you're happy to launch that second poll, and this has been some great discussion around our culture, but we know that the culture within the mining industry translates rightly or wrongly into how the mining industry is perceived within the community, as well as the mining industry more broadly in regard to what we stand for. And I know, again, a lot has been done, a lot of advertisements within various different media formats to promote mining's critical involvement in transition to net zero. A lot has been done in regard to showing the changes that have been made to have a more inclusive and diverse workforce. So how are we doing with that? How do you think it's working? Do you think that our perception within the community is improving, or do you think we still have a lot more work to do? Are we winning the hearts and minds, if you like, of our community to attract new talent? We're not short of work opportunities and career opportunities. Can we attract them? So feel free to cast your vote. I'll give everyone a few more moments to see what that comes in at. So we've had 13 responses. Again, would hate to guilt you, but there's 45 of you. Here we go. A few more people are really pondering it. Well done. Allows me to have a sip of my water. Okay. Okay, wait a few more moments. So at the moment, that's interesting. So it's the majority, but not by much, is showing a feel that we are making inroads, a moderate improvement, which is awesome, right? It'd be pretty sad if that wasn't the case. So that's good. 37% feel slight. So 84% of you are at least saying that there's either slight or moderate. Another 5% feel that we're making a significant improvement, and 11% are showing no improvement at all. Okay, so hopefully we're trending in the right area. Just have a look here. Glencore ads are great. The Resources Council with a nest egg ad is condemning itself. Oh, I don't know if I've seen that. I'm going to have to go look that up now, or if there's a link to it on YouTube or something, but you've got my interest peaked now. So the Resources Council with a nest egg ad is condemning itself. Okay, I'll have to have a look at it. And same with the Glencore ads. Is there any other campaigns that you have seen from companies or peak bodies that you feel are really cutting through, or that you feel are really good, that you'd like to give a shout out to? I know that I've seen a number of ads from industry providers promoting careers in the mining industry on YouTube and the like now. So, when you get an ad from YouTube, which is, great in regard to hitting a different audience, as opposed to, say, full page ads in the national newspapers. And I have seen that, full page ads, but again, is that reaching a younger generation? So we just have a look. So Glencore, I think the mining industry's reputation has improved somewhat, but I believe this is more down to the oil and gas industry being targeted. Okay, so we've shifted attention. Excellent. That's another Jobs and Skills Council's problem. So all right, they're all picking on oil and gas, picketing outside Woodside. As an RTO, we're not in a position to know, but if I had to go on enrolments, I would have to say a slight improvement. Okay, yeah. So yeah, that's right. So that's not a terrible benchmark, actually. I mean, at the end of the day, that's where people start voting with their feet, right? Whether they're enrolling in university or vet. Agree, the Resources Council seem to say it is our money and we should decide who gets it and how it is spent. All right, so you think that might be missing the mark a little bit. And, we know that the research that we undertook even with Gen Z and more broadly, not just us, indicate that Gen Z and soon to be Gen Alpha as well have very different motivators than us, say, baby boomers, Gen X, which I'm still part of, and so forth, where, for Gen Y, they are values driven. And the potential remuneration that they may make from a career choice does not rank as either their first or even second priority when determining a career pathway. So I think, we know that you can earn a good income within mining, but the ability to let people know that mining, can be done in a sustainable way, that mine rehabilitation, mine closures, can be done really, really well, and that the resources actually that we mine are in fact critical to the future that we all envision. And yes, of course, bad examples tarnish the whole industry. Yep, totally agreed. And those will resonate with people for a long time. BHP, that's big. Okay, cool. The Queensland State Government ad in response to the Resources Council is a good follow-up. Excellent. We will look that up. And someone's given me a full stop. Okay, thank you. As a comment there. All right, well, look, we've reached time on this session. Oh, no, here we go. One more. I think the stats on screen, specifically the 73%, indicate that the mining industry is still not advertising how integral it is to the everyday life. Yeah, look, it could well be. I remember the Minerals Council of Australia, to their credit, came up with a really good publication that showed all the day-to-day devices, everything from mobile phones to cars and whatnot, and all the different resources that went into that. But that was a publication. But to your point, not that my opinion matters as one individual, but I think people generally get it. Hey, mining, you can earn good money. I think if we've got work to do on that values proposition, that actually you can be part of helping the country and the world achieve the journey to where we want to be. Be part of it and have an amazing career at the same time. All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. Again, if something comes to you later, let us know. And this is just the beginning of that conversation. But in the interest of time, I'll move us on. And that will take us now to diversifying the workforce. Now, you'll recall from that earlier slide, in fact, I'll come back here. I think the mining industry has made good inroads in regard to increasing female participation. It is definitely growing year on year. That said, we know that when we do look at comparing the mining industry to other industries, we do still probably rank near the bottom as far as overall participation, but I do believe that is changing. And you can see even from that graph there, there's definitely a trend up. Not sure if everyone had a chance to see the recent gender pay gap report that was only released a few days ago. And one of the reports within that showed how much from the amount of employers that reported, how much of them were skewed from a pay gap perspective towards men versus women. And on that basis, you can see that unfortunately mining at the top there, it's probably not that end of the graph you really would want to be on. So anecdotally, what that really means is that, yes, we are employing more women, which is great, but it would mean that based on that high-level data review, is that they're earning less. Now, we know that companies don't pay women less than men for the same job. Or they shouldn't be. If they are, we should be absolutely naming and shaming them. But what it may well mean is that the women that are joining the mining industry are joining in different job categories or different jobs that aren't earning as much. And I would encourage you to explore that the WGEA website. They've got a really interactive data explorer, and you can actually kind of look at the median wage and whatnot. But so we're on a journey, but I guess I'd love to hear what more can we do. And it's not, whilst the data I've got here is specifically around female participation, when we start talking diversifying the workforce as far as our session together now, also really keen to explore what more we can do to get a great involvement from First Nations peoples in the areas that we mine. As a percentage of the workforce, First Nations people within mining actually is one of the better performing industries as a percentage of the workforce, but it's certainly not the largest in total numbers of employment. And the counter argument, probably rightly so, is that, well, it should be higher than many others just by basis of, you know, where these mining operations take place. But love to open up and hear your thoughts in regard to what is working, what's not, what more can we do, and you know, is there a role for training or changes to training? What are some of the barriers that still need to be overcome? And this could still be a strong relation or correlation to the previous session around culture and perception. But I'll be quiet and let people start telling me what they think around this area, around diversifying the workforce, how we're tracking and what more needs to be done. So got one comment already. Not sure where the pay gap information comes from, but it does not hold true for trade and production roles in the coal industry. My comment there would be, I think it's generally accepted if you've got a female electrician and a male electrician, hypothetically, they absolutely should be earning the same amount of money. What that particular graph on the screen, and it's only one report, and like anything, there are different reports, shows that the bulk of the employers within the mining industry have some predisposition, that's probably the wrong word, but are more skewed to men earning more than women. The actual pay gap as a percentage for mining industry, and I'm going off memory here, I think was sitting around 14% or 15%. So, and on that metrics, the mining industry was certainly not the worst. It was sort of middle of the road. Be very careful of the assumptions that you make. Yeah, most pay levels have sub-levels, which is where the pay gap can live. Yeah, great. Okay, valid point. Yes. Yeah, possible that as we automate mines more, the gender balance will improve. Yeah, okay. We have set targets for diversity and new to industry operators. Okay, great. Good to see. One thing we need to ensure is that diversification efforts add underrepresented groups to the industry as opposed to replacing the overrepresented groups. Right, okay. We need to ensure that efforts to increase female or First Nation participation don't in turn discourage. Yep, absolutely. Yep. Great, thank you. We need more of everyone. Yeah, totally. There are many traineeship programs for Indigenous people. We have several on our books. The attrition rate is horrendous, but we have no ability to question why that is occurring. Okay. And I mean, my only question in relation to that comment would be, and I had the amazing opportunity many years ago to help deliver an Indigenous traineeship program for BHP in WA. It was a very rewarding experience over a number of years. And as we know, the mentoring and support for any trainee is important, but you know, our experience was that the more that we provided really tailored support, we ended up getting graduation rates of around 64%, which was phenomenal. Absolutely agree, which is good. So it's great to see people agreeing with the other comments. Thank you. Great job being done in terms of First Nations employment across mining industry, but mostly entry-level or operator roles. That's true. Concerted effort is required by industry to create more diverse leadership teams. Okay, thank you. Most Indigenous traineeships fail due to the lack of cultural mentoring, both on and off the job. Yeah, and that was certainly my experience as well. They need really a dedicated group of people and a very dedicated specific strategy at all levels within the organisation to really make them work, but they can really yield amazing results. Most mining systems are based on long written information assumed to create learning. Okay, happy to explore that comment a bit further. I'm not sure if whoever wrote that comment wants to add a little bit more detail around that, but so that's great to hear about some of the Indigenous traineeship programs. Diversity requires rethinking what learning is and the best way to achieve it with a diverse workforce, which can include people with a disability, yes, low literacy, and English as a second language. Fantastic comment, thank you. And you're absolutely right, when we're talking about a diversified workforce, it is a broad range of people that we would love to attract and see welcomed to our industry. Okay. Fantastic. Okay. Any other comments in regard to what are some of the remaining barriers? What haven't we overcome yet? What is still causing us roadblocks? We have made inroads, but what are some of the things that are still holding us back or making things challenging in this space for us? Happy to hear your thoughts. Otherwise, if not, we can move on to the next section. Type now or forever hold your peace. Okay. I don't think anyone's typing. If you do, that's fine. Keep typing and I'll still read your comment anyway, even though we might move forward. Thank you again. Feel free to reach out to us outside of this webinar, especially if you've got some great examples or you want us to look at something that may be working really well. Love to hear from you and get some greater detail. Okay, so that takes us to session 4. We're on the home run. You guys are doing really well. And that is around emerging skill needs. Now, this can be a really broad session that we can spend a little bit of time at. And that's really trying to understand, look, what is on the horizon? What's coming our way that is going to shape the skills needs of the mining industry in the near future? Happy to talk about automation, artificial intelligence, advanced technologies, digital literacy. How's the workforce going with that? How much more digital literacy is there going to be required in the future? And what technology do you see, or trend for that matter, on the horizon that we really need to be thinking about now to be supporting, be it through the VET system or higher education system, or just generally be aware of in regard to how that's going to change our workforce? And how is safety going to evolve? We know that safety is at the forefront within mining, and we've come a long way over the decades to make mining more and more safe. How is technology going to help us to maintain that lead and improve on it? So a great open session to let us know what you think should be on our radar. Electrification of machinery and vehicles, the need to upskill on-site mechanics and technicians. Thank you. And that is certainly a conversation that we have been having. We know that that trend has already started and is growing momentum, and it's going to need to have a look at how we skill people and give people dual skills or dual quals, even if need be, to be able to work in that environment. I've not been able to distinguish any educational level problems endemic to any particular demographic. It seems to be attitude in the demographic, not the knowledge or participation levels. Okay, thank you for that comment. Simulator training. Feel free, whoever wrote that comment, thank you. Feel free to expand on that. Again, in a previous life, I actually sold mining simulators, would you believe? And so I know a little bit, probably enough just to get myself into trouble around, and that was predominantly for mobile plant simulators, but I know that there's some really immersive simulations now that can be used for underground mining, mobile plant and the like. So do we see that as playing an even more crucial role in the future? What about augmented technology? And happy to hear your thoughts. Downstream technology to support the changes in mining needs to be accessible in regional communities instead of being based on capital cities. Okay, thank you. Via QRC, media release, resources sector launches campaign to alert Queensland to royalty tax threat. Okay. Oh, that's a link to the ads. Okay, gotcha. I'm with you. Thank you very much. Duly noted. Oh, great. I will have a look at that. Well, not now, later. But thank you for that. Anything else? What are we? So maybe people are busy typing. But yeah, what are some of the, where are we heading as an industry? What's on the horizon that's going to change the way we work or the skills needed of our workforce? Or are there brand new skills? What are the job roles you think are going to be there in the next 5 years that may not even be there at the moment? When you consider that, not that long ago, there wouldn't have been as many drone pilots as there are now, and now that's well and truly in place, including maybe even within the exploration sector. How do we do our exploration and surveying? Has that changed? And has the education system, be it at VET or higher education, has it managed to stay abreast of that? Do you feel that our education system is lagging with where industry's at. So closure rehabilitation specific vet quals, absolutely. And you rest assured that is a priority that Osmasa is working on at the moment, to build that up as a project around land rehabilitation and mine closure. Some simulations are very poor. I have work health and safety seen training delivered on site using printed forms, only to find the workplace has no printed forms. They are all online. Training using the stuff that will be used in the workplace is the only way to go. Absolutely. So the relevance of training and the quality of training is important. And certainly we've been having some conversations with our industry partners around some specific high risk training areas like working at heights. Was one that we spent a fair bit of time unpacking just last week, actually, and the spectrum of the quality of training in areas like that, which we know is critical to get right. So thank you for that additional information there on the simulations. See if there's anything else anyone would like to share. Emerging industries that can support the mining sector should be located close to the mining areas to create further employment in those regional areas and new skills. Great point. And I know, again, and I'm sure it's probably not entirely unique to Western Australia, but within Western Australia, the FIFO lifestyle has become very much ingrained, and that can create challenges to try and build and develop the communities around the actual mine sites, specifically in the Pilbara, but not limited to the Pilbara. Whereas I think in some states like Queensland, the communities tend to do better to build communities around mine sites, and I would imagine within New South Wales it'd be the same. Once a unit of competency is identified in legislation, it can drive money making within RTOs and undermines the intent. And look, and certainly that sentiment was felt in our discussions last week when we talked about the working at heights training, and the fact that it can be seen as a real money spinner for RTOs, and sometimes then the danger is that quality can fall off. Yeah, but thank you. Thumbs up, and for an unfortunate reason, a thumbs up. But so what? And finally, what are some of the new skills or emerging skills that you think workers need to have, and are we teaching them already now? And if not, if you're thinking, okay, the way we do work or the way work gets done is changing. What are some of the skills? And there was a mention earlier around, gone are the days, or rapidly so, where everything was done on paper. Things now are, done more electronic. Is the workforce digitally savvy enough to stay abreast of a more digitally enabled workforce, or workplace, I should say? I'm going to assume everyone's busy typing. I'm going to have a quick glass of water. If not, I'm trying to give you prompts here, but if not, then we can move on. Probably only got about 5 minutes left anyway, but if there's something else you'd like to add, here we go. Lack of foundation skills is still an issue to move workers to digital environment. Great, thank you for that. And that was certainly part of our discussion earlier this morning as well, where it really felt that, without trying to lay the boot into our education system, because we're all in the same boat, but especially for the younger people coming through our education system and into apprenticeship streams, that they were not as prepared as they probably could be, and a lot of it was around foundational skills, including life skills. Critical minerals mining will be a significant change to traditional Australian mining methods. New mines will have a much shorter life with lower quality of ore using very different technology. Great, okay, thank you. RTOs do not have the funds to pay the wages required to draw mining employees into the training system. Okay. With the recent changes to RTO standards, there may be more scope to employ experts to enhance training. Great comment, thank you. And would be great if Osmasa could assist to bridge the disconnect between government and industry, e.g. the change or inclusion of mine deputy on the apprenticeship priority list recently was poorly implemented. Apprentice mine deputy is not a role within industry, and the current funding is more than $2,500 short of current qualification costs, putting private RTOs in a difficult position. Thank you. duly noted, and happy to keep that conversation going as well. Autonomous maintenance technician competencies are required. Okay, great, thank you. As a coal mine in Queensland has operational autonomous haulage systems, and seems that the closest competencies sit within UEE package under industrial autonomy. Great feedback, thank you, and happy to look into that in more detail. Again, feel free to reach out to Michael, myself, or Will, and we definitely will explore that with you. That is a generational too. Younger people have troubles on PCs. Well, that's right. I mean, even PCs, I mean, we know what PC stands for, but I guess everything these days is, tablet or otherwise. Okay, duly noted. This is also a challenge with attracting workers from local communities with LLN, also a huge stumbling block. Okay, so look, the foundational schools cannot be underestimated, the value and importance of them. That's amazing. Thank you already. There's quite a few threads there for us to continue. Mindful, I don't want to keep anyone longer than what we need to, so happy to move on. Here we go. I think the school students coming through next will be more digital savvy, as most are learning on laptops from year 7. Basic literacy and numeracy is an issue, particularly in regions where workers are readily available for mines. Okay, duly noted. Thank you. And foundational skills need to include digital as well. Absolutely, LL&D. Yep, spot on. Hardly any RIs have use a PC as a foundation skill. Okay, there you go. All of our training product colleagues in the webinar will dearly take note of that, and we will look into that for you. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. What I might do is that really, like I said, that was like speed dating of workforce planning, and totally understand that all we've really been able to do is at least float what we think some of the major issues are. It's now really incumbent on myself and my team to dig deeper, do a bit of research, reach out to yourselves, and vice versa, so that we can really build up the knowledge and understanding around these points. But it's important because this is a way of you advising us as ASMARSA in regard to where you think we need to be looking and putting our effort. So in that sense, a huge thank you. As far as next steps goes, please, as I said, stay involved. If there were particular discussions here that you really didn't feel that you had the opportunity to tell us everything you wanted to, reach out to us so that we can continue that conversation. As I said, by the end of the week, you should get a survey as well. That'll have a twofold purpose. On one side, it'll give you a great opportunity to let us know what you thought worked well as using a webinar or a digital approach to a traditional roundtable. So we'd love to hear from you in regard to what you think we could maybe do different. But that survey will also give you an opportunity to, again, give some input in regard to some of these questions that we posed to you. So if something came to mind, you can also put that in your survey. Other than that, again, look, 11 minutes early, that's great. And before we finish, need to ingrain in the young people that opportunities must be worked for and are not something that they are automatically entitled to. I will say absolutely that same sentiment came up in the automotive workshop that we held, where it was unrealistic expectations or lack of realistic expectations amongst young people. That was something that they felt really needed to be embedded. So thank you. What are your contact details for us to reach to you as suggested? I'm gonna nominate Michael and I'm going to type his email in here, home address, PIN number,
bank account details.
Yeah, that's right. So Michael, who is our valued manager of industry engagement, and don't get me wrong, if you send something through to Michael, no doubt he'll end up sharing that with me and the team as well, and we'll absolutely touch base with you. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you for your engagement, and thank you for making yourself available. We're looking forward to continuing this journey and keeping you informed as we build Workforce Plan 2024. Thank you, everyone, and have an amazing afternoon.